Hello, and welcome back to Norrin Reads. In this episode, I will be reviewing Silver Surfer number 11 from the 1987 series. This issue is entitled Nova, and it was written by Steve Englehart, penciled by Joe Staton, and inked by Joe Rubinstein. This issue jumps right into the action with Silver Surfer and Nova being attacked by a band of space pirates. As they're defending from this attack, they have a conversation about why these pirates are attacking them. If you recall from last issue, Silver Surfer and Nova were sent to find the Contemplator for Galactus. The Elders tried to kill Galactus in previous issues, and Contemplator is the only one that escaped his vengeance. While Surfer and Nova are fighting off these pirates, the Surfer suggests that these pirates might be in league with the Contemplator. Nova doesn't see how there would be a connection, and she responds by saying, "Come on, we're after the last Elder, the Contemplator, no less. What would a fat guy who lives inside his head have in common with pirates?" To which the Surfer responds, "I can't believe you asked that question. Are you still too new to space to realize there are no limits out here?" I like this moment. It's showing a distinct difference between the Surfer and Nova and their experience. She dismisses the Surfer and says, "Well, it's not my fault that I chose to serve Galactus so long after you did." And the Surfer has to remind her that he didn't choose to serve Galactus. He chose to save his world, and serving Galactus was the price. She feels that Surfer is talking down to her, and she says that she's learning more than she ever thought possible, and she doesn't know everything, and she doesn't pretend to. Of course, the Surfer has a bit of a response to that, but as he's about to reply, he's hit by a pirate's laser blast. The two decide that they should probably have this conversation at a better time. So they eventually defeat the pirates, and the pirates retreat off into space. Nova quickly wants to go after them, and Surfer throws a cosmic blast in front of her and stops her and says, we can't follow them blindly. Nova doesn't understand why they just can't go after the pirates, and Surfer explains that they retreated into the Colsack, which is this thick cloud made of primitive chemical life. And it's like a labyrinth of tar, he explains. And Nova responds, "Sounds like the Sargasso Sea we had on Earth. That place was choked with slimy seaweed." Now that's a reference to the previous issue where it said next, the Sargasso of space. So here we are, that is being paid off. Surfer responds, "Yes, I remember it. Your pirates used to hide there, exactly as these pirates hide here." Nova becomes distracted by this dead pirate floating in space who looks kind of like a guinea pig, but she says, "Hey, look at this guy. He looks like a rat." And Surfer goes, "Yeah?" And she goes, well, I haven't seen it before, so it's interesting to me. She starts to try to explain herself and her interest in things. She talks about her travels to Europe when she was still living on Earth, and how she wanted to see everything, and she just found every aspect of her travel interesting. Not just the monuments, not just the cathedrals. She says the telephone booths, the brands of toothpaste, the jeans, everything. And so now that she is a herald of Galactus and she's in this reality she's in now, she is completely in awe all the time of everything she gets to see. She completely loves it, and she's got this very naive but beautiful perspective on her space travels. Surfer then reminds her that tourists are often mugged because they are so caught up in the awe of everything that they're not really paying attention. So she needs to pay attention because they are in fact in a dangerous, real situation. Nova understands, and they discuss going after the pirates because it seems like they attacked him for seemingly no reason, and to attack a known Herald of Galactus, Silver Surfer, and also to attack the new Herald of Galactus, Nova, pretty bold move for pirates, so it seems suspicious. We then flash back to when Silver Surfer and Nova visited Nenora, who is now the leader of the Kree Empire, but as we recall, she's in fact a Skrull. They ask her if she knows what the Contemplator is, because he was last seen with her and the Supreme Intelligence, but she replies that she's been busy ever since she's been in charge of the Kree Empire, ever since the Silver Surfer drove the Supremor mad. And if you missed it in previous issues, the Surfer took the Soul Gem from the Supremor, which caused the pink and blue Kree consciousnesses within him to clash because there is racism between the pink and the blue Kree. So this drove the Supremor mad. She goes on to say that she has not sought reprisal against the Silver Surfer because she's busy fighting the Skrull in war, so she doesn't need any more enemies. The Surfer asks her again if she knows where the Contemplator is because she has this huge information net that the Kree have. They have outposts everywhere. The Supreme Intelligence was constantly being updated with information, so now she's in control of this information net, so she must know something. She stares the Surfer down, and there's this really great panel. You can see her on her chair looking down at the Surfer, and behind her is a screen of her face magnified to show her eye, and she just looks angry. She's staring daggers at the Surfer. I really like this panel. She agrees to give Surfer and Nova the information, but she says that if she does, Surfer and Nova owe her a favor. The Surfer agrees, saying as long as the repayment doesn't interfere with any other obligations he has, he will do it. Nova says that her first duty is to Galactus, and other than that, she's up for the bargain. Nenora seems to like Nova's response because the Kree are all about duty, so it resonates with her and she agrees. She tells them that the Elder is likely hiding in the planets ringing the Colsack, and that is what's led the heroes to where we found them in the beginning. Surfer and Nova fly into the Colsack after the pirates, and Nova is quickly caught in this tarry substance that's in the Colsack. She's okay, she just burns her way out of it, but she's kind of irritating the Surfer. He just hopes that she'll pay attention to what he has to say because he knows these things and he can impart this wisdom to her. Now, Nova knows that Surfer has greater knowledge than her, but she likes to learn by doing things, so they're gonna have this conflict. They keep trying to find their way through the Colsack, and the Surfer points out that pirates managed to navigate this, and pirates aren't known for their intelligence, so if they can navigate it, these two can. So what Surfer does is he actually can control which spectrum of light he is seeing with his power cosmic, so he shifts it, and then he can see a path through the Colsack. He instructs Nova to do the same, and then they see their path. After they do this, Nova comments that they are both pretty amazing, and the Surfer responds, well, it depends on what you compare us to. If you can compare us to Galactus, for instance. And she says, oh, well, I see what you're saying, especially after we saw him speak with Eternity, and that was in the last issue. So she's getting an idea of Galactus's place and her place in the cosmos and how she has great power, but compared to other powers, it really pales. Nova begins to talk about Galactus and the fact that he looks human. The Surfer then tells her that Galactus appears to beings in whatever form they're most comfortable with, and she points out that it's usually human or humanoid, and that there are a lot of humanoid species in the universe that she's seen. She says, well, the pirates were humanoid, the Zenlavians, the Kree, the Skrulls, even the Elders, and the Surfer points out that the Skrulls are reptilian, but she says, well, either way, they have humanoid bodies, and the Surfer thinks about it. He's like, well, you're right, but the Kotati, they're not very humanoid, they're plants. But he then agrees that, well, this form of humanoid seems to prove pretty useful under different conditions. He then has a brief thought about Mantis and how she showed him different uses for his body that he never knew about before, and she also showed that bodies could die. They find the pirates' hiding place within the Colsack. They land and they find disguises so that they can hide among the pirates. They decide to split up and see if they can find any information and see if the Contemplator is there. The Surfer is not comfortable stealing clothing, but he knows that he needs them, so he does it. But Nova doesn't seem to care at all. So the two split up and they begin infiltrating the pirate camp. Nova walks around and she thinks about the Surfer being a better guy than she thought he was. She also thinks about the fact that he betrayed Galactus and what Galactus is and what his place in the universe is. So she doesn't really think that he made the right call because Galactus is this massive being. She says you have to see the forest, not the trees. She's completely on board with Galactus needing to devour worlds, and she just takes him to planets that he needs to consume, whereas the Surfer intended to take him to planets without intelligent life. Nova really doesn't mind because she sees the grand scheme of things and understands what Galactus means. Nova continues her thoughts on Galactus, remarking, and sometimes I'd swear he feels something for me. This, of course, is something that the Surfer has noticed a couple of times, and Nova noticing it basically confirms that it's true. Nova's thoughts are interrupted when a pirate starts hitting on her. He invites her to a party, and she tries to figure out if the Contemplator's gonna be there, but she doesn't want to be direct. So she kind of brushes this guy off and is like, oh, well, maybe I'll see you there. Meanwhile, the Silver Surfer is being invited into a Kree facility. The commander notes that times change quickly. Just a few cycles ago, they would have fought to the last man to kill the Silver Surfer, and now he's welcome. He's interrupted by the Surfer using the power cosmic to kill him and then every single other Kree in the room. He then flies his board outside, revealing he's on some sort of Kree outpost on a planetoid it looks like, and he begins using the power cosmic to completely decimate this outpost. We zoom in on the Surfer's mouth, and he has this gleeful smile. Nova is waiting for the Surfer to arrive. He shows up, and he's wearing a different outfit than he was before, and he explains that he didn't feel right about stealing those clothes, but he saw two pirates fighting on the docks and one of them was killed, so he took the dead pirate's clothing because, well, he didn't need them, and he also thought he would let his sense of wonder have its day. Nova likes this. She goes, "Oh, well, that's great. You're not as stiff as I thought you were, so somebody obviously taught you to loosen up." And Surfer's kind of taken aback by this, and Nova says, "Oh, it was that mantis woman you mentioned," and Surfer just dismisses it. He doesn't want to talk about it. So they leave it at that, and the two go off to the pirate party. They get there, and it is a huge gathering. Everybody is there. Of course, our pirate friend who was hitting on Nova earlier is there, and he tries to get her to dance. She says, "Oh, my dance card's full," and she takes the Surfer out on the dance floor, and then they start dancing. And they seem to be having a good time, and Surfer seems to be loosening up. This pirate guy tries to cut in. Surfer says, "I don't think so," and this pirate punches Surfer in the face. And as you would expect, the Surfer is fine, but this pirate's hand is not. Other pirates notice this, and it turns into an all-out brawl. Surfer and Nova don't have any problems holding their own, but they are having to hold back their power so they are not discovered. But while they're beating up these pirates, they share a smile and they share a moment, so it seems like maybe there's something growing between Surfer and Nova. Suddenly, something envelops everybody fighting at the party. It almost looks like a organic cage or something of the like. I'm not really sure, but it's obviously an alien trap. After it springs on them, Nova yells, "Surfer!" and all the pirates start realizing, "Surfer? Oh." And she goes down, and the last image we see on the page is Surfer kneeling over Nova. Her flame appears to have gone out, and this reptilian creature stands before them. He says, "I do hate humanoids, and what classic specimens these are. Welcome, Silver Surfer. We were expecting you to die." Next, the non-humanoid. Overall, I thought this was a really fun issue. Kind of a good adventure for these two to go on, and we learned a lot about Nova, and we learned more about the Surfer. We really get to see the contrast between the two, not only in their experience, but in the way that they handle things. So it makes sense that this issue was called Nova, because we really did learn a lot about her in this one. One of the main points of interest in this issue is, of course, that Surfer who attacked the Kree. Who is that? How is that possible? Is it a Skrull who was disguised as the Surfer previously, but now is stuck in that form? If so, how does he have powers to attack in a way that resembles the power cosmic? So it's doing what good fiction does, and it's making me ask questions, and it's making me excited for the answers. I would also be remiss if I didn't speak about the artwork from this issue. This is the first issue in this run so far not penciled by Marshall Rogers. This was penciled by Joe Staton, and I feel there are pros and cons. The pros are the Surfer's depiction. He reminds me a lot of the John Buscema Silver Surfer, which is probably my favorite depiction of the Surfer, so happy to see that. I would say the only con for me is Nova's depiction, particularly her face. When Nova and Surfer are close together in certain panels of this book, their faces look very similar. What I really appreciate about Marshall Rogers' depiction of Nova's face and Shalabal's face and Mantis's face is he draws really beautiful women. I feel like Joe Staton doesn't draw particularly beautiful women. She looks too much like the Surfer for my taste. So, minor thing, but something I noticed. So thank you again for joining me, and we'll see you out there on the cosmic spaceways.